EDI activities on the role center. Here you can see anything that's going on in the EDI world. Any pending shipments that needs to go out, pending invoices, transfers of consignments, sales orders, and any failed inbound, outbound, pending documents. So the idea here is that this should all be zeros. If it's all zeros, then you're all good. Everything looks good and everything is transmitted. If it's not zeros, you should receive email notifications as well of what's pending, what can't be sent out, what failed, and so forth. And you can go in here and address it. I'm going to go to departments next, and we're going to go through the system from beginning to end. So EDI messages, here's that anything going out of in and in of NAV is going to go through an EDI message table where it has status of pending, processed, failed, or I can also view all the EDI messages. Pre-arced activities, I can manually run processes as I mentioned, but the idea is to run them on the NAS, but if I would want to, I can manually say receive, I can manually say send my invoices, and so forth. I can also manually run the NAS, the automatic process. We still call it the run the NAS process, even if it can run on the job queue and so forth. So what that means is that in a test or development environment, you might not want to have something running in the background every 5 minutes. So you want to set up the job queue, or you would deactivate that job in your test environment, and or inactivate that job in your test environment, and then you could manually go in here, click this button, and run the same processes that the NAS would run automatically. I'm going to skip the picking process. We have an EDI log, so everything that goes on in the system is logged here in the log. It's nice to have an audit trail of what's going on. We both have a log here and the EDI messages. So an audit trail is always nice in a financial system, right? You want to know what happened, when it happened, and being able to trace it back. On the setup perspective, if I'm going to go through my EDI setup first, this is the main setup. We can define a timer interval here. If we don't want to run it on a unique schedule or specific schedule, we can say run it every 10 minutes or every 60 seconds or every 5 seconds if that's what you want. And in that case, it's going to run the processes that have been set up to be run automatically. Maybe go out to the FTP site, grab all the pending orders, try to process them, create sales orders for those, loop through all the posted invoices and posted shipments in NAV, and send those ASNs and those invoices out. We have a retry count. We manage the FTP communication from NAV. Again, you don't need any other software. This is it. So if there is intermittent internet connectivity issues between yourself and SPS, it's going to retry 5 times here before it reports a failure, and that's going to take care of those issues. Licensing, some information here in terms of emails. So in this case, John Roberts is going to say I received the emails that when something goes wrong, and then in this case, only when something goes wrong. He's not going to receive emails on every successful processing because that would generally be too many emails. And then the connectivity. So in this case here, I'm using a local file folder where I receive and send my data, and that's because I'm in a demo environment. When we move over to SPS, we changed it to FTP. We get the FTP address and username and password from SPS, and then we receive and send directly to their FTP site. There's nothing, no dependencies on anything locally in the file folder. We need to just have a shared file folder here, so you can see, but there's nothing dependent on that. All the documents and all the communication is stored within the database itself. So if you make a copy of this, restore to a test environment, or send to your partner for development or whatever, everything in the database is contained in one place. In my demo environment, though, I'm going to be using the file folder inbound and outbound. Okay. Let me click OK. Then we have our EDI ports. So anything inbound in terms of the documents and anything outbound in terms of the documents that we work with are in an EDI port. So you can see here, these are the EDI ports that the system comes with, standard, are loaded up with. So we support customer integration, meaning you can receive inbound purchase orders, send outbound invoices and outbound ASNs, receive inbound 816s, and so forth and so on. We also do purchase order supplier integration, so you can send outbound POs. You can do vendor enablement programs with SPS to get all your vendors to be EDI compliant, so you can transact in EDI with them, which means, again, you're sending outbound POs to them, and also receiving inbound ASNs, receiving inbound invoices, receiving inbound change acknowledgments or sales order acknowledgments. And we also do third-party logistics integrations. If you do have outsourced warehousing, or maybe even you want to integrate with some third-party warehouse system, you could do that. Meaning you can send electronic pick tickets, receive shipment confirmations, and also do the 943 and 944 from a receiving perspective. What I'm going to show today, though, is pretty simple. I'm going to receive an inbound 850, which is an inbound purchase, a sales order, and then we're going to send out an invoice and a ship notice. So that's what we'll do next. On the EDI port, let's just take a look at this sales order, inbound 850. So I'm going to double-click that to open up that. And again, all this is loaded. You don't have to set this up because this is standardized, right? We always call it the same thing. We always use the same XML ports in terms of the NAV XML ports that translates the data or includes, that's basically the map. And so on. There are some options here, though. If I close that one down, on the processing side, I can say, well, do I want to release the sales order or not? If I want to release it automatically, or if I want to maybe create a saved list, I can see all the EDI orders that are not released. And our system obviously processes all the standard NAV business logic because it's all built in NAV. So any custom or standard rules that are in effect are going to be processed, or business logic is going to be processed. I can also specify a unique notification here and say notify on processing and so forth. And I can also do this by trading partner. I won't show that today, but I can create a copy. Well, I can create a copy of the EDI port. And if I create a copy of this EDI port, I want to create a unique one for Walmart. The only thing I need to change is the file extension here. So if I change the file extension to WAL, on a specific EDI port that I can give another name, then this EDI port will now only pick up documents from Walmart. Because in the EDI world at SBS, each trading partner has their unique extension. So if I just go back here and clear my filter, you can see I have a Sam's Club and a Costco unique one. And why would I want to create a unique one? Well, it's not because I'm going to have a different map for that that specific trading partner, because the map is always the same. It's always the same XML port. But I might want Costco to be released automatically, and I might want to be notified on each Costco order that comes in. And I might want to specify an email address other than the standard email address in EDI setup that should be notified. So I can do those things by EDI port, and then thereby also by trading partner. So that's that. Last thing before we run through the transaction is the EDI translation. So the EDI translations we have here. So this is where we can set up the different code translations, cross-referencing information. You can see I have my items here too, but I wouldn't use my items to set up this. I would use standard NAV item cross-references because that provides me with more powerful functionality in other areas of NAV as well. So that's what I want to use, but I could use this as well. But for example here, if I scroll down, we can look at the item and the unit of measure. So in this case, I've set up my unit of measure to say pieces, EA in the EDI value and the EDI world represents pieces in NAV. And this is then my standard unit of measure table that I specify all my units of measures. So I match that to the one I want it to be. So that's a one-time setup, and this means that I don't specify as unique EDI port. Say this is not only for Costco, this is not only for the SBS 850, this is for all my trading partners. So that's I omit the EDI port here, and that means that it's going to be in effect for all the EDI ports. You can see some other things here that's going on too, but that's basically it. So that's my EDI translations, and then we have email setup from an email setup perspective, and that allows us to send and receive the emails or notifications when something out of the ordinary occurs. So next here we will run through a transaction. So I am going to go to my EDI setup, and I'm going to open up my inbound my folder here, my inbound folder, because again in this situation here I'm actually using a local file folder. And here I have a sample file that we'll make a copy of. So I'm going to copy that and paste that in, and then just going to format it correctly. So I don't know if you remember, but on the EDI port it said, okay, all the PO starts with PO and then any file extension at the end here. So in this case, this is going to be our PO we're going to be receiving. Just going to double click that and show you that XML file. So this is a very nicely structured XML file based on SBS standard. If you don't know XML, that's fine, but even if you have never seen an XML file, you can probably even read this. You can see order header and purchase order number. There it is. If we scroll down here, you can see, okay, line item have one order line that has line number 1, and this is the buyer part number, this is the vendor part number, and this, which would be, my part number, and then the consumer package code, and they're ordering 1, and this is the price. Again, very nicely formatted EDI XML document. If you have been reading X12 or EDFACT EDI documents, because that's what you're doing today, then you'll know that those are pretty much unreadable unless you can read them, which in case you probably wish you couldn't, because this is what you want to work with, and from a technical perspective. But again, even if you don't know XML, you don't need to worry about it, because this will always make its way into NAV, which I will show next. So in my system here, I don't have any automatic process running in the background. So I'm going to have to manually trigger it. So I'm going to go into periodic activities. I'm going to go to manually run the NAS. And we're going to wait a few seconds, in which case it processes all the background activities. And the first time here is going to take a little bit longer. But basically what it's doing, it's receiving, it's sending, and it's going to pick up that file and try to process that file. If everything goes as expected, we should have received created a sales order. But in this case, something out of the ordinary happened. So we got an email here. It says EDI port sales order 850 failed to process. So I'm just going to open that up, and then I'll tell you why I wanted that. So I could just show you now, okay, now I have a sales order in NAV, and that's the magical part of the system, right? You just create a sales order. Instead, I'm going to take you through the process of what actually happens in the background when a sales order is created. And a good way to do that is to go through an exception. Because in this case, it tells me here, external document number already exists in NAV. So every standard and custom error message or exception that NAV would generate as part of creating a sales order or releasing a sales order, if you have custom business logic there, or there's some standard business logic there that is, throws an error, will be captured by this notification system, and you will be notified about it. In this case here, it tells me 30, message 30, external document number already exists. So this is a duplicate. So we're going to go and look at that. So I'm going to go to my EDI messages, and I can go to my failed EDI messages here. I can also go to my role center. Oh, I guess I should click home. Role center, and then I can see, there I go. I have one failed EDI message. So I'm going to go through it there instead, and then we can see it here. We can double click it, and we'll be able to see that error message, that a failure message that occurred. And now the data from the XML document has also been parsed out to an even more readable format. Still structured in this same way, so you can see trading partner, you can see purchase order number, and you can see the format of the data in this type of format. This is, if an end user that's managing the system here would ever have to read something, this is what they would have to read, in terms of looking at it. SBS offers other options of how to look on this online, which I'm not going to go into today, but this is, from a NAV perspective, what it looks like. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to click process, and it's going to tell me this already exists on another sales order. Yeah, I know, but I'm going to ignore it, so I'm just going to click yes. It says it already exists on a posted invoice as well. Again, I'm going to ignore it and click yes. And we'll just create that 850, that sales order again. So give it a second here, and it's going to tell me that it was created. So successfully processed, and then it moved out of this bucket, and if I go back to my role center, there I have no more pending messages or anything there, so everything is good from the EDI system. So what happened now, if we go back to the processed EDI messages, so we go to the EDI messages and look at them from this perspective here. So I'm going to go to the last one, number 30, and open that up. Again, it now sits here, and it says processed instead. So the NAS process picked this up. It tried to process it. It failed. It put it into the failed process. And then another process, which was our manual process, we pushed it from failed to processed. Usually, the end user don't have to go in here, right? Because the sales orders come in, they get processed, and it creates the sales orders and so on. It's all done automatically in the background. In this case here, though, let's take a look at the sales order created. So I'm going to click Link Documents. This button exists on EDI messages, but it also exists in NAV, standard documents, sales orders, purchase orders, and so forth. And it allows me to navigate the EDI documents. So on the sales header here, I can see, well, from this EDI message, I have the EDI message itself, and I have my sales order. Those are the only two related EDI messages at this point in time. So I click Show, and we open that sales order up, and there's a sales order that was created. And we have an EDI tab here. It says Sales Document, when it was received. If I go to my, I think it's the Actions tab, or is it the Navigate? No, Action tab. I can see my link documents here too, and that allows me to go back to the inbound document if I need to. Okay, so quickly here, we can also go and do the outbound process. So I'm going to fill in quantity to ship and override the warehouse message. So basically, in the end of the day, independent on if you're using our pack and ship product for your fulfillment, which is another product that we have to track package level details, do your UCC labels, do UPS, FedEx, USPS integrations, and so forth. Even if you use that, you use a third-party solution like SolarGlobe or Excelos, you use or use some other competitors' products for that, or just use standard NAV. You're going to get a posted shipment and a posted sale invoice at the end of the day. That's what you're going to get, and that's what I'm going to generate here because that's where we source our data for the invoice and the ASN. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to post this sales order. So we're going to go back here and post, and we're going to ship and invoice. So it's going to create a posted shipment and posted invoice. So we just let it sit there for a second again, because my service tier hadn't warmed up, as we call it. It takes a few seconds. Posting. So this is going to generate again the posted shipment and the posted invoice. Both those documents are going to be marked for EDI because these customers have been set up for EDI invoicing and EDI shipments. So the way I can see that, I can go to the historical data and look at it, but I can also go to my role center here, and now I see my pending shipment and my pending invoice. So let's look at that pending invoice, for example. So I click that. This is my standard invoice. We look at the invoice card, and we can see here now this is the invoice, and it's marked for EDI invoicing. If I go to that customer record, I'm just going to show you quickly how the customer is set up for EDI invoicing. So I go to the customer, and we just open up the customer card here. And when we do so, there's also a new EDI tab down here where it says which EDI port they're using for invoicing, which EDI port they're using for the shipment notification, and then some other things too that we won't go into today. But we basically support all the customer integrations that you probably would want to do by standard here by different document types. But this is pretty much it. So this is how you set up the customer for EDI. So on this invoice too, I can go to my actions button, and I can click link documents. So I click link documents, and now I can see all my related documents. I have my source inbound EDI message. I have my sales header that was created before, but it's now gone. If I had archiving turned on in standard nav, the archive record would be here as well. And we have an invoice that we're on, and we have a related shipment. So it's very easy to navigate and see all your EDI messages in this system. We see both here, the invoice and the shipment is marked for EDI, but they have not been processed yet. So I'm going to close this screen, and what we're going to go do, we're going to go back home to my role center, and we're going to manually run the NAS again. So I'm going to click manually run the NAS to process these two. And we're going to let it wait, and then we hit F5 to refresh, and they're gone. And nothing here, pending, nothing failed, means that they created these outbound EDI documents. It uploaded them to SPS and the SPS network, and now those documents are there. Just to show you here, I'm just going to show you the XML document, because in my system here, I'm using a local file folder, but these would have been uploaded to SPS. So here we go. Here's that XML document based on a standard map. It has all the information, very likely all the information that any of your trading partner would need. Just to demonstrate that, just in the payment terms details, we sent all this information. And no trading partner is going to need all of that, but because even if it's X12 or EDFACT, it's not really a standard, because everybody wants different types of information. You know, some people want the discount due date, and some wants to do days, and so forth and so on. So we just send it all. SPS knows what's needed based on which trading partner, because they know the trading partner, they have the relationship, they have the map running, they have another 1,000 suppliers that support that supplies to Dick's, Walmart, Target, whatever it is. So that's the outbound document. Same on the shipment notice. I'm not going to show that right now. Lastly, though, we can also go here and look at. I'm going to go to my processed EDI messages, and we can see the invoice and the ship notices. So we're going to go to the invoice here. Here's what it is. It's processed. It was created as pending, and then NAS picked it up and processed it. That's the second process. And I have my linked documents here. I can quickly go to that invoice, right? That's just showed you before. Show sales invoice, and there it is. There's that invoice. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show is the EDI search function. So I'm just going to use my search up here and type in EDI search. And when I do that, it's going to bring me to this EDI search screen. The EDI search screen allows you to search for any type of EDI data. So I can just type in a number here, this number here, for example, and it's going to give me all the related transactions for that contains that number. In this case, it identified that as a purchase order number. So here I go. I have these three that I did today. These are all from other presentations I've done in the past, but for today, we got these ones. We got the purchase order, 850, 856, 810, and we can see when they were created, and we can then use also the link documents button to quickly access that ship notice or whatever it is related document. So it's easy to get to the data. And that's the presentation of the EDI integration built in NAV for NAV.